Hi everybody, welcome to the Lissen podcast. I'm joined today by Mekaal Hasan. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's our first podcast. It's my first time interviewing someone, so we're gonna have some hiccups, but thank you for doing this with us.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
I think we should jump right into it and please start explaining to me and everyone what you do and how we even came up to be seated together today, because it's actually pretty funny.
Well, I'm a musician and a producer and guitar player. I have my own band called Mekaal Hasan Band. We've been active on the scene since 2000, so it's quite an old band. And it's had lineup changes. We have 3 studio records, a bunch of live stuff, and we're working on a new release right now. And I pretty much tour everywhere. We were signed with EMI Virgin in India for about 2 records, and then we did another deal with Times Music. And post that, not that those deals are concluded, I'm pretty much an independent artist now.
Okay, do you release your music on...
Myself, yeah.
Oh, okay, get it.
Up on CD Baby and on Bandcamp.
Okay.
And our music is essentially traditional based music. It's coming from a shared culture that we have with India and with Pakistan. I'm Pakistani. And it's essentially traditional songs, folk songs, a lot of Sufi music. I'm sure you've heard that term.
Yeah.
It's basically spiritual poetry. So all of that stuff is what our band covers, including stuff that goes back centuries ago, you know.
I checked the videos.
You did?
It sounds great. Yeah, just a homework. But it really sounds super cool. It's some music we hear a lot in Europe.
Yes.
But it's for me that there would be room for that, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And so if you are if you go back in the days, what was your transition from studying growing up and to discover music and to be that's gonna become my career?
Actually, my earliest associations, my earliest memories have been of music. My father was very influential in this regard. And I come from an unusual family in the sense that we have a very strong liberal arts influence throughout my family. All my uncles and my aunts and all my father and mother side of the family were all into education primarily.
Okay.
So we've had writers and journalists, and my dad was a columnist as well. My mother's a literature professor. So there was a very strong literature and arts influence always in my family, which is unusual because that's not the typical setup in Pakistan.
Okay.
So my earliest memories are hearing lots of jazz around the house, and that continues to this day. But that is how I got influenced, because there wasn't much to do when I was a kid. There wasn't much to do in Pakistan. And so I spent most of my childhood, pretty much like I do now, invested in listening to music and into listening to records. So that's my earliest influence, is just being around literally records and music throughout my childhood.
And then after you start I love it because we're gonna arrive to the point where you had a leap of faith and I did not, for example. So you arrive, you start making music with friends, I guess.
Yeah.
And do you play guitars?
I play guitar, and my grandmother was a classical trained pianist. So I took some piano lessons when I was 10 or 11, and I always used to watch her play. And I wouldn't dare to play myself, but I'd when she wasn't there, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I always had this fascination with it. And at that point, we're talking in the 80s. There was no access to music education or instruments, or you couldn't find strings or guitar picks or anything. So you had to ask someone to bring you a guitar pick or a packet of strings or something.
Yeah.
And my dad went to Austin in '88, and that's when I got my first Fender guitar and amp. He bought it back for me for Christmas. And
Super cool.
That's how it started. Yeah, that's how it started.
I mean, that's an amazing gift. Oh wow. Okay, so you have the Fender. You start playing.
I start practicing. I was self-taught, and
me too.
Yeah.
And then you had
totally
the bleeding on my guitar kind of.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah.
But you wear this as a badge of honor. It's literally the expression, the scar tissue.
Yeah.
When you learn an instrument, it's not scar tissue. It's your blood on the instrument. Not on piano, I guess.
It's not. Well, even on the piano, I mean, when you don't know how to control it, you're banging on extra
hard.
That's
why I don't know. Okay.
And so you can not get a callus, I guess, but on the guitar, it's physically demanding, right?
I imagine. So guitar, you start doing it.
Yeah. And I was about 15, 16 then.
Okay.
And so I did that, and then I wanted to pursue it more seriously. I couldn't find any teachers. There was no online or no internet. And I ended up just. My dad used to host tons of jazz musicians when they would come through. In the 70s and 80s, the American Embassy was very supportive of music. So my father, in his turn, in the 50s and 60s, had seen Duke Ellington and, Dizzy Gillespie.
Duke Ellington?
In Karachi, in Pakistan. This was in the late 50s.
Wow.
And he was a young man then. And so those experiences, like, he just fell in love with jazz. He never sort of like,
I mean, when you have
that was his thing.
Duke
Yeah,
that plays,
exactly.
it's hard to
If you hear
I
Duke
don't like
Ellington
that.
play, like, oh wow. So they had these jazz acts coming through, and so that was a part of American cultural policy as well, that they would bring down jazz artists. So you'd have like a concert or foreign artists coming through once every 2 years or a year or so, and that led him to make lots of friends with jazz artists and musicians. And,
That's fascinating.
And so he kept up with them. Jan Gavrek, for example, was a friend of his. Jimmy Owens, all these Chico Freeman, all these guys came through.
Nowadays, I feel like that we forgot about that era. It was the same like in Lebanon, Egypt, or like kind of like countries that right now you hear about geopolitical issues, but like in the 80s, 90s, like you still had like all these exchanges,
You had this
cultural
culture,
exchanges.
exactly. And now that the world is more connected, you're having less of that.
Yes.
Especially for our kind of countries, where we're sort of like viewed as politically troubled, not exactly stable. The general impression is not a positive one. So
Do you have back in the, do you remember like when you had these cultural exchanges that it was both ways, that you had American artists coming to Pakistan but vice versa?
no, it would not be vice versa. This is the problem, you see, because it's really up to the Pakistani government to support their artists and to send them.
So you feel it was a lack of support on the Pakistani government?
I think lack of vision, maybe,
or interest,
or no interest, and not really seeing how could this translate into a better relationship. And I think the Americans, rightly so, and the British as well, rightly so, thought that this is a sort of like a good way to not only interact with people, but to introduce values that we believe in, music 100%. That we love, and also sort of like learn something about where we're playing. And so I think they would do informal jam sessions, but it didn't really culminate into like a project or into something that could be revisited, which is a shame because you'd want to follow up.
Yes, I follow a lot this writer called Ted Gioia. I don't know if you know this guy.
I love Ted Gioia stuff. Yeah,
like a huge fan. I was lucky enough, like he answered like a few of my mails. Ted, I love him, and he has this thesis about the big debate between macroculture and microcultures, right? And so you could see that at that time, right? Of course, the countries that have more money, more resources, because like it's easy to maybe draw conclusion to like, the Pakistani government like didn't have interest in it, but maybe it's just they didn't have enough resources, right? A government is like a company. If you don't have enough people,
I think governments, it's a matter of interest. If they're convinced that this is a good way to win hearts and minds, this is a good way to have a soft image, a positive soft image for the country, I think they would go for it. But because inherently, culturally, the way the country is being run, arts and literature and those things are not invested in.
Oh, yeah,
generally.
Fair. But empirically, I guess that the Americans, like it was a bit easier for them to do it because they had way more resources.
Yeah, and also don't forget that jazz and blues have been the calling card for American culture. When I think of America, I'm not thinking politicians or political ideologies. I'm thinking of people like Jimi Hendrix and Miles Davis.
Culture.
Yes, I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking of writers. I'm thinking of, people like Hemingway. I'm thinking of,
That's cool. Yeah. No, I get it.
Literature, poetry, art.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of that. I'm not aware of the cultural or the political aspects of the country itself. It's only now that once, when you're older, then you look back and you realize, okay, this was part of a policy, but as a policy, it wasn't as damaging as completely being cut off from the rest of the world, right?
Yeah. His thesis is that you have the rise of microculture, that microcultures, right? And so the whole point is that instead of having just one hegemony, like one big superpower, just saying like, hey, this is the way
This
to
is
go.
the way, yeah.
Like now you have, but that's not at the country level. It's really like at the general level, at the artist level, to be like, now people can actually, it's direct to consumer business model. It's like, I like what you are doing. I don't need to go to one channel that broadcasts everything, right?
Right.
And you see a rise of that, like what he's doing, for example, with writing, right? And he's also like a jazz player and so on. He's like a music expert, and you can see like he is managing his own audience now. He doesn't need to be writing for the New York Times to be able to have an audience. Now you can have an audience on your own, which is like what Lissen is doing too. Like the concept to bring back to fan-centric, like it's direct to consumer. Now you don't need these broadcast channels that actually very quickly would become gatekeepers, because their revenue model is most of the time not aligned with what you want to do as whatever you do as an artist, as a content creator, as a music maker, whatever you want to do.
I think the core of it is that there are so many brilliant musicians and artists that I personally know of, and they're all struggling. And you know why? Because they don't fit into some neatly preconceived notion of, oh, this is sellable, oh, this is trendy. Because we're not making music for that. We make music to share it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this to become a billionaire. If I do, great. But if not, no problem. As long as I get to survive and I get to connect with people who care about the music that I make. That's the reward for me.
Yeah, but you still want to be able to have a roof over your head and to
you
put
still
food
want
on
to be
the
able to earn from it. And this is my issue with the way the business is set up, that the numbers that you have are so dependent now on how much money you put on advertising your own content. And it seems that the bigger the numbers get, the more the content seems to get weaker and weaker and weaker. It's a
race to bottom. But this we're going to touch down this in a second, because that's by design. This is why it's extremely interesting. You're giving me like a great segue. Just like, for example, already you are able to live off your art, which is already great.
Yeah, but I have to multitask it. Just like you, I have to engineer, I have to mix, I have to master, I have to write stuff, I have to sometimes do work for adverts, which I hate doing.
Got it. Of course, you have to.
You have to do that. I have a beautiful studio, and I always encourage younger artists, especially artists who don't have money. I don't even charge them, because I have the facility, and I've been that way for years and years. So I really believe in nurturing younger people and anybody who's struggling. They don't have to be young. They could be an experienced musician, and they just don't have the money. So if I can help them, why not?
I've seen this everywhere. Everyone in music that can sustain themselves most of the time are like a jack of all trades.
Yeah,
if you want to,
you have to
just be doing music or just producing or just doing one thing, it's actually very difficult.
Impossible.
Which influences, indeed. And so the issue is, but what if you would be the greatest at that? Why, hypothetically, again, because it doesn't mean that everyone is great and talented at what they do, right? I'm not saying this, but it's like, how would you create a model, an ecosystem that allows you to actually showcase your skills and to at least try to make it just with one set of skills? So for example, like I love being in a studio and recording with other artists, or you're a producer, right? Let's see if you can do this. Right now, if you want to be a producer and be self-sustainable, most of the time you need a deal with a bigger label or a bigger entity, whatever it is, that enables you the access to the money. You cannot do this direct to consumer. You can, but you have the pool of money is way smaller, which is why I think it's at the business model level. Yeah. So you, like everyone, you're a jack of all trades.
Have to be, yeah.
And why are you in the UK now, for example?
Oh, this was supposed to be my break before moving on to a residency in Canada. With the project that recent stuff that you were asking me about, like why are these guys sitting and singing?
Yeah.
That project it's a residency that I'm designing, and it features the works of a very famous Qawwali artist, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, who is a huge legend in Pakistan and everywhere else where people know about that kind of music. But we wanted to sort of like visit his legacy, and in particular one record that was a Peter Gabriel, Michael Brook produced record called Night Song.
Okay.
So the entire residency is built on a tribute to him with a documentary feature, and then us playing the songs that you heard.
Super cool. Where in Canada?
In Toronto.
I just had some friends from Montreal that were here last week. Yeah. So it's like, I love Canada. But so that's a great segue. Like now my point is like, we talked about music, how you get there to be like, oh, I grew up, I love music, I want to do music. Now what, right?
Now what?
I can play the guitar or whatever, I can sing, I can produce, I can do anything, but like, how do I
Convert
become
this
available?
into something that can sustain me.
Yeah, and like, how do I access the marketplace, right? And so at the moment, so you have the landscape where you will have digital service providers, DSPs, right? Like Deezer, Spotify, and so on. You would have, that's for like the all-you-can-stream buffet, kind of. It seems like everyone uses it for like marketing purposes instead of like making specifically money. You would have places like Bandcamp where you can actually put the price on record, like
you can
people
choose
used to.
what people pay.
Yeah, I feel like it's another use case, right? You would have other platforms like NFTs and so on, and that's like the recording industry, recording and publishing, and then you would have live performances, right, concerts and so on. Do you have an idea at the moment how is your revenue, the percentages? Because most of the time, like basically it's like 80-20. Like how does it work for you? Like do you perform more like in the live sector, or do you make more money recording and producing?
Struggling on both ends is the fair answer. But really, the only money that you actually get to see is really from concerts,
Right.
or from merchandise. That's another revenue stream that I think a lot of artists can really sort of like tap into, and a lot of them don't. And I keep telling younger artists that, guys, you have so many people following you, and you're young, you're good looking, use it. Because you're not always going to be 22. You're not always going to be 25. You've got
I don't
the
know what
fan
you're
base
talking about.
now.
I've been stuck at 25 since like a long time.
But you know what I'm saying? It's a potential income source which is direct to the fan.
What do you think about sync also? I see a lot of
Sync licensing?
Yeah, like to have just for everyone like to follow up. It's like to have your
I
music
guess.
put in a TV show, for example.
That would be ideal, but I've had like some weird luck with that, or bad luck, I guess, where because we were signed to an Indian label, a lot of our catalog was being used on talent shows like Indian Idol, and they have these singing shows in India. They're very popular, and so a lot of our music songs would be routinely sung by contestants. We never saw a penny from that.
Ah, yeah. So the
Never
deal
saw
you
a
had
penny
with that
from that.
label you didn't have a cut.
We were supposed to, but because I'm from Pakistan, there's no way I can legally contest how they use my stuff.
Oh,
So until I essentially have to change my nationality to contest it, because now it's owned by Universal Music Group,
yeah.
right? So EMI version is
Yeah,
assumed
yeah.
that the
Universal bought EMI.
right.
Yeah.
And when you look at the views and the streams on those tracks, it's like in the millions. So on paper, it looks like I've really made a lot of money, but in reality, the company made all the money, and we never got paid out.
I saw an interview between Russ, like the American rapper, and Andrew Schultz in their like the podcast that they have, and they basically explained that he advises a lot of artists to audit their label. Of course, that costs money, right? So you can only do it at a certain scale. And they basically said that even if like he was signed with, I'm gonna name labels, but like a lot of different labels, he audited them and he found millions. And you're just like, wait, what? And so, and it's very interesting because it's a corporation, and most of the time the person you actually shook hands with, right, and you signed the deals.
Yeah,
and
they might
these
have
deals
retired or moved on or whatever.
yeah, exactly. So you can't like target your frustration or kind of like anger at someone specifically, and then you check the contract. Most of the time, it's like a line that could be interpreted in like 10
In
different
any
ways.
Yeah.
And so then, indeed, you're just like, wait a minute, you're syncing my music. Yeah. Why I don't have a cut on it? Well, because you know that paragraph, and you're just like, well, okay. And then you talk to a lawyer friend like 5 years later, and say like, you could definitely contest that in court, but then after you enter like the legal system, and it's a whole different ball game. So you can only do it at a certain scale. But it's crazy that to these days you really have two different categories of like any entities, right? Like, because I meet a lot of labels, and they're like really trying their best, like to be as honest, like as fair as possible, and they're really trying. Like people are not making like specifically a lot of money themselves, and then you have some labels that are really like, come on, like you this auditing, like we're in 2024, like you're still doing everything on Excel, but the issue is that because they want to make a bit more money, they don't invest, so they it's really hard to tell them that they genuinely tried to obfuscate that money, because a lot of time, if you go in the depth of it, I've been doing data for 15 years. Wow. If you go in the depth of it, actually it's just someone that just forgot. It's just like an Excel spreadsheet that was not updated because last year there is a new performance rate that was applied to that specific country. And of course you need Kevin, right? That was the intern 5 years ago that coded the software or whatever, and it doesn't work. That's what data in music is really one of the big, if not the biggest issue, because a lot of people, I spoke with a lot of people that actually some labels had been audited, they found a lot of money. I'm like, how could you miss that? And it's just like, well, let me tell you how it works for real. And actually they have the same issue. So I was in financial services before, right? It's the same problem. It's like, you didn't do it on purpose. You just forgot.
It's just an oversight.
And then it's just like, you don't know that because you don't ask someone to spend maybe like that one day on it, you actually are making someone else lose millions. And it's sometimes it's with bad intent, right? But you cannot say he said, she said, right? You don't know.
You don't know. And but in this particular, in my case, it's also more complicated because of the political relationship between the two countries, right?
Yeah.
So they can legally do stuff which I can't contest. I won't find a lawyer in India to represent me because I'm Pakistani.
Oh, wow.
It's like that.
That bad?
It's that bad. So what they do is they can keep taking your content, they can keep using it in their programs. You cannot do anything about it. And the moment in fact, they're still distributing my stuff. And we've sent them takedown notices so many times. But it's still happening. There's nothing you can really do. I cannot find legal representation in India to take up my case, even though my contract is signed in there. So what I'm saying is they are within the horror show that is the music industry. They are also horror stories within countries. Yeah, because there's no trade deals between the two countries, right?
Okay. So it's not because an Indian lawyer would not want to represent you. It's just because there is no legal ground.
There's no legal ground.
Oh, Jesus.
So you sign the contract, so you sign all your paperwork in Bombay, right? They take your stuff, they do whatever then many years later you find, they're still selling my stuff and they're still using my songs. And I'm not even being credited. I'm not put there as the composer, as the producer, as the artist. It's not even assigned to me. They're just stealing, essentially, what you made. And then you can't do anything about it. And you can't find representation for it either. Until I am either a British person or French or Canadian, then I can go to UMG and say, hey, this has been happening. These are the songs. This is the number of streams that these songs.
You do top down.
You'll have to do top down, yeah. And they may turn around and say, hey, we don't know. This was signed. I mean, I've got the contracts. What I'm saying is it's very complicated. And it gets worse. The poorer the country, the less power you have. So you guys actually can affect change. We can keep crying about it, but they won't care because I'm just another, disgruntled artist who's crying out, they took my music and they didn't pay me. So they probably heard that from God knows how many people. But this happens between nations where one nation has a huge market share. The other one's like a developing market. So they can take your content and use it whichever way possible, and that has happened to me repeatedly. It still happens. Still, some of those songs are being sung by contestants.
Which is why a lot of people. So that's another good transition. Is like which is why people now start self-releasing, right? DIY platforms. I'm not gonna names, but like distributors. You arrive and you do it yourself.
You do it yourself.
And so. Right, this is what you're doing now. You told me before.
Because of this, because I understood that. Okay, first of all. Even though it's a great label to be on technically, they're not going to give me tour support because I'm living in another country. There's going to be limited push in terms of media because there's all kinds of political associations with countries like India and Pakistan. Right now it's like at a complete standstill. It has been for a decade, where they don't want to take on any Pakistani talent. Because they're like, why should we engage with them?
But this is labels. So the point is that if you start going DIY, right, and you go for distributors, are you familiar with the royalty models that are used on these platforms? Because now it's like directly, literally like Spotify, Deezer, whatever, Tidal, Apple Music, the distributor, and you. Are you familiar with how it works, how that money is being redistributed?
No, I'm not. That's why I was listening to This is how I got to your thing. I'm like, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's, one of the gentlemen was talking about how they were working with Live Nation and how they ended up paying for everything, and it all came out of their end and not the promoter's end. You know?
Yeah, and this is in the live music industry. So this is what we can cover both now, which is very interesting because that's how we met, right? Like via
That's how we
Instagram.
met, yeah. And I think I shared your thing. I was like, you know, this guy's talking, so I have to listen to him. You guys need to understand what he's saying.
Yeah, because so right now one of the issue, which is like why we created Lissen, like the new interactive music platform that I built, is that the issue right now is that you're gonna have two fan of yours, right? For example, one that will be, let's just take even one fan, right? They're gonna stream you and pay like whatever, me in Europe, right? I pay a tenner every month, right? If I stream you like, I don't know, 10 times this month, and I stream BTS for like a million times, right? Because they are in a lot of playlists and so on, and they have way more distribution opportunities than you because they can be put in a lot of playlists and so on and so on. At the end of the month, just that difference like would make sense because I stream them more. So far, so good. Now the issue is like if I only streamed you 10 times and someone else, Coco, streamed BTS a million times, that money pot now, my money, my tenner, that normally before, like it makes sense that it goes to BTS because I streamed them more than you. That's my usage, right? When I go in the store, I buy a tomato, I buy a potato, right? Like it makes sense, like I have what I'm supposed to buy, right? But in that case, my tenner is gonna be redirected to BTS because of Coco's usage.
Right.
So this is what, and that's the pro rata or artist-centric system. This is what we want to change because in the new platform we built, that as a fan, your money is only going to the artist that you stream.
That you listen
versus
to.
right now, for anyone listening, like your money is being rerouted for you.
Right.
Which is crazy if you think about it. When you go to a store and you pay for, I don't know, the flowers, you don't want that money to go to like another brand. Like that makes sense.
I get
this is the only way where they find a way to obfuscate that. With the live and touring industry, it's again something different. But that's why I think that, for example, for people that self-distribute, changing that royalty model is going to change everything. Because now it means that just like on Bandcamp, you're able to have a central source of music where everyone can go. But as an artist, now you're not disconnected from your audience and your fan base.
Right.
Because now it's in your interest to actually convince them and to give them the best experiences for them to have the best emotions, which is what we want music to give us, right? To actually manage them and find a way to make a living out of it.
Yeah.
So now you don't need a gatekeeper to say, you're going to be on Discover Weekly this week. And if you're not, you know you're not going to reach 1 million streams. 1 million is a lot.
Yeah.
How is it possible that with 1 million stream, you barely make like 1,000, 2,000 quid? It's dollars, by the way. And that's before tax. That's before the cut of your label. That's before the cut of the people that put you on that playlist, right? So at the end of the day, most of the time, like the artists make less than 10% of that.
Yeah, if that.
Which is why I think that this is what we could change. That's the video that you saw on when I interview people. No one is aware about this. So you give that money to this corporation and you don't even understand that they are routing that money for you and you don't even know it. So you as an artist, you'd be like, I'm making pennies. And that's why we created it, because one of my mates that is like a brilliant artist, right? He was making millions of streams and during the pandemic, he was still working for Amazon delivery. And just like, wait, what? And
so you're saying the money that he should have made? Yeah,
like if you just follow like the money he should have made, you just like, it makes no sense. But also, like, why do you make like 0.002 or 0.004 per stream? Like, it makes no sense. Again, you're supposed to make money if people come in your shop and they buy stuff in your shop. That's yours. That money is not supposed to be redirected to someone else.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that when I realized that, I was just like, wait, what?
And also, it must be something where record labels now, I think, have gone from the business of one time investing in music and artists and developing those back in, we're going back quite a bit. But there was a point where they would actually, A&R would actually find talent, they would develop an artist, and they would launch that artist and they would support it. And now I think they're just looking to buy a catalog. They're looking to buy IP as opposed to looking to create art.
100%.
There's a huge difference.
2019 and 2024, so what people, just so everyone listening, right? For what people call catalog, right, are like old music, and then there is current music. So music released over the last 4 years, right? To give you an idea about like why like new music is not consumed, in 2019 it was 69% of the music consumed worldwide that was catalog. Right now it's 62. Now it's 72. So plus 10%. So people stream more old music. It makes no sense. It's definitely because there is the discovery mechanism that is being impacted, and that makes sense because if, as the DSP in the middle, you make money just by people coming to your platform and by people paying you to put songs in certain playlists. Now, who has the most interest to put this in the playlist? The people that have the most money, so the biggest labels and so on. So they're going to pay you, and you as whatever, I'm not going to name names, but like the DSP in the middle, whatever Deezer, Spotify you are, you make money out of this. So as a fan, the playlist you're going to get to, they're actually going to feed you stuff that you're just like, oh, cool, I discovered this new artist. Of course, you have all the music in the world. Of course, there were great songs, Duke Ellington and so on, that were done back in the days. But why you don't see the new ones? Because they cannot invest in money to be placed in this playlist.
Right.
So that's why the royalty model impacts the business model, which then impacts discovery.
Right.
And then as a consumer, you feel like you have free will and you're discovering what you want. But actually, because factually, you have all the music in the world. You could find it.
Yeah.
But there's a difference if you enter a shop and you literally have like the first flowers here, and then at the back of the shop, you have like, I don't know, like an orange flower.
Yeah.
Statistically, these are the most purchased flowers. Point.
Which is
right?
why they're in the front.
Which is the equivalent of the playlist right now on all the DSPs. You go on Spotify right now, take a look at all the playlists they show you. On the top right corner, you're going to see this little logo. They control them because it's a revenue stream for them.
So it's in their interest to actually keep shelling out older music because they own all the catalogs,
Older,
right?
at least the music that they're being paid to put there.
Right. And that means that new music actually doesn't make
I
that
mean, literally,
cut.
statistically, like it has been diminished by 10%.
Wow.
Over the last 5 years.
Wow.
Something like this is 10, maybe I'm like, don't quote me on the numbers, but like catalog keeps on rising. It's the only industry in the world where you have literally the catalog that is more consumed. Like Game of Thrones, right? You have more viewership on the new seasons. I'm like already old, like a Game of Thrones, but like, you know what I mean? You check the new seasons, right? So on a specific year, the last season is going to be watched more than the first one.
Wow.
Kind of makes sense, but not in music. And people are just like, oh, seems like a coincidence. And I'm like, nope, it's data. And that's why it's very interesting, because royalty model, business model, discovery, consumption. Discovery, full influence, consumption. Right now we are on socials, right?
Right.
We're both like being monkeys online and trying to get these clicks, right? Because these KPIs, these key performance indicators, these metrics with viewership, that's why A&R is broken now. Like that's now, like you have someone that just blow up on TikTok.
Yeah,
you're going to sign a
exactly.
recording deal, they take 50% of the ownership, which is nothing. Before the labels used to take way more. But because, and that's why A&R doesn't work and they don't break new artists, in my opinion, is that they don't invest in A&R, artists and repertoire. Just to be like a scout that comes to your show to be like, wow, like Mekaal, like,
Yeah, I mean,
ripping the guitar, he's amazing, let's put him with a good singer, let's see how they're going to do, and then you start building a fan base. Now it's just like, oh, because TikTok told me that is worth 50 million views, this is of course going to become a big artist. And what you can see is that this fails
yeah.
more and more, and it just doesn't work, which is why catalog is still very prominent. So all of these are interconnected, like influenced discovery. I'm not saying manipulated, right? But influenced because of the business model. Lack of A&R because you believe that these socials and everything actually rule the world, which they are not, right? You could see like their growth curves start plateauing now. It's going to take a few more years, but like we're only 7 billion, right? So at some point, so you can't grow anymore. You know what is skyrocketing? Direct to consumer business models. Live music.
Yeah.
This keeps on growing. You keep on like selling tickets because people
Absolutely.
now they realize it just doesn't work.
I think also you can't discount the fact that the experience of going to hear a band or an artist perform in front of you is irreplaceable. No video or no streaming figure is ever going to capture that emotion. I think live music is actually the last hope. But there also it's complicated because venues which used to support live music are shutting down now. In Canada, I know in Toronto, like there were a couple of very good venues which would host classic acts, and they've had to shut down. Why? Because they've been converted into either apartment complexes or into shopping malls. Basically, at the end of the day, commerce, it's so expensive. The cost of living has gone up so much that those places need a lot more money to keep going.
I think there's that. I agree. I think there's that, and also, I believe that now we're in a transition in this. Our thesis, my thesis, is that in the consumer application age, right? You had 3 phases, and I think we are transitioning to the third one. The first one was like when internet arrived, right? Because an application at the beginning could be anything, right? But it became digital, right? So an application at first is like, oh, if you're online, you're a nerd. If you're in real life, you're the cool guy. The second phase now is like Gen Z. It's like, oh, if you're online, you know what's up. If you're in real life, you're a boomer, right? And the third one, I think, is actually, so again, Gen Z, they were born digitally. So they will smoke you for anything digital. But all the metrics at the macro level worldwide show that actually they start discovering real life. So me, I was, you and I, like we were born in an era where like we know the pros and cons of real life. And then when the internet arrives, which is like, oh, you have also pros and cons with this. So we can ponder them properly. We're very lucky. But then you have like these like 1.5 generation that were born digitally. So they didn't have time yet to discover the advantages, the pros and cons, to be honest, of real life. And they have something that we didn't have, that they have these physiological tricks that are being used by social platforms. That's all the stuff that I share on my channels, right? The fact that now we know empirically, like the VP of growth, Chamat of Facebook back in the day, apologized at a TED talk about the fact empirically we discovered an addiction mechanism online. These short kicks of dopamine.
Yeah,
right?
that's
This is
what it
the
is.
first time this Facebook algorithm implemented ranking. Before it was who you followed, chronologically speaking, old school.
Right.
Then ranking, we're gonna help you determine what is the good post. So it's not if Mekaal or Ben, it's not who posted last, it's what post has the most engagement.
Yeah. I keep getting those, that so many people engage with this, make more reels like this or make more posts like this. I'm like, well, I mean, you know.
But that's addictive, right? And they found this by pure chance, right? And then TikTok arrives with the For You feed to be like, hey, it's more or less irrelevant who you follow. We're gonna determine what content you're gonna like YouTube For You right at the top. And again, this works great if it's properly done, but then that means that whoever you connected with yourself, you actually kind of like gave up on following what's going on. Now go on your like feed. Do you see a lot of the people you follow? Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Who decides that? Someone in whatever, Silicon Valley or headquarters somewhere. And you're just like, oh, they do. And why? Because all these platforms are ad-based. We don't pay for it. So we are the product. So what they want is to hook you up in that ecosystem. So like this, you can see the next ad that they have been paid to push to as many people as possible, because that's how they make money. So their target is to have as many eyeballs as possible, and to get that advertising revenue.
Yeah.
Not your mental health. Because now what we know is that you have literally countless studies, and like I recommend everyone, like on the last post, every time I try to link them, like studies that show, like, I mean, Jack Dorsey also talked about it recently. All these studies show like the younger the kids, and a lot of countries are trying to regulate about this, the younger the kids, the more you're gonna irreversibly impact their brain. They're gonna think differently. You have videos of like 2, 3-year-old, maybe 3 to 5-year-old on YouTube now. You can see it, like they are sleeping and they are scrolling.
Wow.
This is terrifying, right?
Yeah, that's
and
really...
you see that you have like all these studies again are being pushed, and I don't think that they're being pushed as much as they should, but like mental health is degrading everywhere worldwide. In the States, suicide rate is as high as in 89. It's the end of the Cold War.
Wow.
Right. And so you're just like, why? The world is more open than ever. We have more art than ever. We have less wars than ever. More food and anything and energy than ever. But people feel terrible. And these studies show that it's one of the reasons, I don't know if they're all the reasons, but these dopamine kicks that impact you physiologically, which is crazy, are really good for business, for all these big social networks.
Obviously, because their job is to make you keep clicking or scrolling. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is not your health. They don't care about that.
Yeah.
They care about engaging you, which is why they call it engagement.
Yeah.
You know.
100%.
So what is the engagement at the cost of? Your time, your attention, your clicks, and those clicks are essentially money for someone or the other.
100%.
Right? So the whole model has changed from actually wanting to get people to hear you. Now it's, I want to get people to click on what I'm doing, and it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, because it's the first 3 seconds. Like literally, I've seen people listen to something, look at it first, see if the shot is interesting or not for them to proceed, and then 3 seconds, 5, they don't have the patience for anything longer.
The attention span
It's
has
really
been
dropped.
But again,
awful.
like it's not their, it's frustrating, but it's not their fault. Like Gen Z, for example, they were born into it. So again, we are all like being programmed. Even me, I'm aware about this, and when I see the followers count going up, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And then
I
I slap myself. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is just a number on the screen, right? But of course, you know what it can bring you, right? Eventually, partnership stuff. But it is something we should talk more about, and that's why I think we should design. That's that third phase of new business model. We should design business models on this direct to consumer vibe and mindset, where we kind of ensure that we give you back ownership, we empower you as for example, a music maker, right? Not because you have so songwriters and publishers, as a music maker, that you can actually directly interact with your audience. There are a lot of initiatives that work really well, for example, I mean, in other industries for sure, but you have Patreon, you also have Weverse, for example, in I think that Korean based, like with Hybe, that do this really well, where like you want more from your artist, because your songs are only a part of what you can do. But a lot of people we interview, for example, in the streets here in London, they would be like, I would love to be in the studio with Mekaal. I would love to be there when they shoot their next video. I would love to try to influence the next lyrics his band is gonna write. I would love to, a DJ, for example, I would love to be able to know, to determine what is the first song they're gonna open at the next show, right?
Or basically want more for personal
we call this services.
Involvement.
Yeah, everything that is not
doing.
Concert or merch, we call these services. And a lot of people would like to have this kind of interactions. It exists in a lot of other industries, like YouTube content creators, like they do this meet and greets all the time. Like why is it so complicated for artists to organize that? Right now, if you would like to organize, how would you do? Yeah, you could not.
Yeah.
This is what like Lissen is going to enable you to do, for example.
Amazing, yeah.
It's all these things like are like this direct to consumer business model that I think would help also on the mental health side of things, because it means that the business model makes you pay as a consumer, but as a consumer you pay because you have the value that you asked for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the money is going to the right places. It's not being like a huge chunk of it disappears into some unknown, company's account.
Yeah.
You're actually part of the whole process, like the music and the audience and the consumer and the person who makes it are one. So it makes sense.
Music
Actually,
and experiences.
the funny thing is with music, it's like the most obvious things are the ones that people are not doing. Like there's other concerns that I also have, and I wonder if you feel this. Like I know lots of amazing musicians, and I know they're all really lovely people, but I often feel that musicians themselves don't encourage their fans to check out music that they might enjoy or they might like, and that's a great way to grow a circle of like-minded interests. It's all about just me. And so what I do is like I'm often sharing artists that I'm very passionate about, and they could be older artists, they could be someone current, it doesn't matter. What matters is that my influences and my aesthetic, I can share that along with my music, this is something that artists, if they were to realize it, I think they would actually grow their fan base. Because now they'd get like-minded people together. Like Ted Joya, like, you know, why do you and I'm from Pakistan, you're from France, but we all agree that that guy really knows what he's talking about, and everything that he writes is super interesting. It's been well researched, well documented. So
the Honest Broker.
yeah,
is the name of his newsletter.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I subscribe. I'm same here.
Yeah.
Same here. But I subscribe because I know this guy really knows what he talks about. He's always entertaining, without being, you know, superficial.
The last
It's
one
like,
about coffee is great. I don't know if you remember, like when he
I
talks
didn't
about
see that.
coffee.
No,
It's
but
really funny.
But I think people like Ted, like they're doing the right thing. They're talking about culture. They're connecting art, music, history, all those things. And I think musicians need to take that responsibility to let other people know, hey, if you like what I do, I'm sure you're going to love this record. Go hear this.
To collaborate more. That's what you mean. But
Not only to collaborate, to create that circle of influence.
Cross promote. Like so,
Yeah.
so you create like a vibe. That to be honest, YouTubers do this really great.
Yeah,
Like they
like you know how
collaborate.
people give shout outs?
Yeah.
But I think musicians need to take that responsibility up. It's not going to take away from your audience, it's going to grow it.
You know what? It's really interesting because one of the features that we're working on is what we call collaborate. So just on IG, how you can collaborate and cross-post something. One of the things that we're developing is this. Is like you will be able to release music or an experience, right? Concert, merch, service, whatever it is. And you can have someone else to collaborate with you so their fan base will be aware about it.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, right now what you would have on DSPs is just a classic, like, oh, that's my radio, right? And you will see some music. That's lame. It's like, okay, cool. No one clicks there. Everyone knows it. But you could actually cross-post and organize all this in a very simple manner. Again, it doesn't exist right now because it's not financially incentivized by their business model. In my case, I'm not the Red Cross, right? It is financially incentivized to actually help artists to collaborate together and to actually have their audiences to be aware of each other. Because you create a community.
That's the key thing, because
Yeah.
so this is one of the problems with social media. It doesn't create communities. It identifies individuals and then it celebrates that. And before you know it, it's just one individual. There's no sense of community left.
Oh, even in social media, even worse in music. On music platforms, you have none. You either go to a special one, which no one goes to.
Exactly.
Or you go to listen to music and
Exactly.
you have no clue. As an artist, you don't know who's listening to you. And as a fan, you don't know who else
Is
You just
listening.
know you have a million people, it's just a number. It's sad.
Just exactly. This is something that I think musicians can actually positively change, because they have the power to make those suggestions that, you know, this record I heard, you must hear it, is brilliant. You will create a common interest group, which is what people like Rick Beato and Ted Joya are doing.
Yeah,
everybody
Rick
who,
Beato, he's
right?
there,
Everybody who comes on there is there because they're music fans, but they also trust what these guys are saying.
Agree.
So if I respect an artist, if I love an artist, and they tell me about a recording that
Yeah.
I haven't heard, because they must know tons of artists who are amazing and we don't know about them, that network is something that, you know, especially with what you're doing, this could be a feature that you guys should introduce.
100%.
Let artists support other artists. Before we ask people to support us, how about we step up and do the same ourselves, you know?
Yeah, otherwise
So-
this like crabs in the barrel mindset where like one is going up and then everyone is like bringing it back down.
It also will it will allow you to develop that into festival models, let's say, you know?
100% agree. This again is something like has been requested by a lot of artists because it should be simpler. Which the issue right now is that I think a lot of them want to collaborate and already do it. By the way,
Yeah.
Here the local scene is like thriving, and so a lot of them like actually do this. Like they say, oh, like I hope you like that show, but you should go and check my mate, right? This kind of stuff. It's just that digitally we have to give them the ability to do this in a way simpler manner, and that's what we're working on at the minute. This again, I'm using this as transition. Clip it. That brings me back to like the fact that what I'm trying to push is like to bring back the human at the center of the equation, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's fan-centric, it means that you're empowered to communicate to your audience, which means that you can create bespoke music and experiences with them, which makes sense, and also curate, right? Help them and cross-post and so on. So you create that community, which is again, when you grow up, normally you don't know the kids at school and just like, what did you listen to? And then you sing the same lyrics together and then you can become friends. But this is a part of the tribe. We're all like monkeys, right? So we all need something in common, which is what is the illusion that these socials are giving us. Like we have something in common. No, it's just the same app, but they will decide if you talk to each other or not, right? And on Netflix, by the way, behind the smoke screen, something like this, there's a super cool documentary about the influence of these fake discovery algorithms, right, on these social platforms. But one of the things that I've realized in the last 5 to 6 years is that all these music platforms, they are telling you, oh, we have 100 million songs. We have 200 million songs. And it's just about the songs, like if it's a commodity, right? It's like we have 100 kilo of rice, right? But the artists start disappearing more and more. And then suddenly you start seeing AI. So what I did right here? Transition? No, you start hearing AI more and more. And then you start realizing that more and more tracks are actually done by like ghostwriters. Like one guy in Sweden has like 1,000 different performance stage names, right? He's like, wait, what? Like 1,000 or like several hundreds? You just
I think there was a case like that. There is some guy.
There is. They are being sued.
Sweden or where he has all these multiple streams, right?
He has more streams than Michael Jackson.
Right, that's the guy.
No one
knows who the guy is.
Yeah, and then you start digging, right? And you start realizing again that it's in your business model. It's in your interest that people feel that the most important thing is to have as many songs as possible. Then you realize, say, okay, how can I cut cost? Right. Oh, these artists are so annoying. they need to go in studio and have cameras and microphones. So how do you cut that? Oh, well, let's use, every time I use Kevin, it's not great, but like Kevin is like a John Doe for me, right? Let's use Kevin that told us that he can create music for us for like, I don't know.
Nothing.
$2 and you have a song, right?
Right.
And let's do this, right? And then, but like if people see that Kevin literally created 1,000 music for us, it's not gonna be cool. So let's give him stage names. First stage, right?
Right.
First step. Second step, Kevin, $2 per song, mate, that's too much. OpenAI, can you do something for us? Yeah, could you like generate songs, like a lot of them? And we don't have to pay anyone for that.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's think about it. Let's call it fair use. Because humans train themselves on other humans' music, right?
Yeah.
But let's use the concept of fair use we have for humans, but for machines. I'm a software engineer myself, so for me it's really hilarious, right? And let's tell no one how we train our machine, right? And let's create music that sound as good as Mekaal. And now we don't need to talk to Mekaal anymore. And
that's
now
what
the
I'm
cost
coming
of creating
to,
the song is not two.
I'm waiting for
one.
the day where they can have copyright ownership over your voice, over your music, over your songs, over your writing style, where the machine will just learn everything you've done, right?
It is,
and now you're irreplaceable. Now you're replaceable. The AI has replaced you.
You already. I don't know if you heard like the last models. Like it's, and it pains me to say this, right? But like what they trained with, the songs that they release are like really so good at the minute that. Like in a few months, you're gonna have one that would eventually pop. The issue though is that no one is credited. It's the machine. And so the point is that you will be able to create the song that you like yourself. So that's why it's like threats and potential. The threats are if you let IT engineers, that's my people. I come from there. So if you tell us you can use whatever you want, whenever you want, we will. Like, it's like, why? The concept of copyright is just like a few hundred years old, right? The printer was invented, and then 300 years later, the copyright laws were invented, right? So you have technology that arises before regulation. Right. In that case, the little issue is that technology brought something new. No one could like copy paste a book. You just had monks somewhere that were writing it. Yeah. So then the point is that to spread knowledge. Here, no one said there is not enough music in the world.
Right.
That's the point. That people want AI to like I don't know, do your dishes, right? Collect garbage in the street. That would be cool. Because last time I checked, no one is like, oh, we can't wait to collect garbage tomorrow. Like props to these guys, the garbage collectors. Like that's a tough job.
So this is my gripe with all this AI stuff. It's like, wait a second. Now the AI is doing all the creative stuff for you, and now you got time to do your dishes. It's like
That's the point.
well, there's something wrong here.
It's like, oh,
It should
Mekaal,
be other
stop
way.
doing music.
Yeah.
Now you
Why are
can wash
doing- yeah,
dishes.
just like take the garbage out or vacuum the carpet or something.
Why are you
Like,
complaining?
why is the AI not doing that and letting me do the creative stuff, which I'm
it's
supposed
like, what
to?
about I decide what I would like to do? If I
Yeah.
had to choose between the dishes and the guitar, I would choose the guitar and say, wait, it's harder to do like your dishes stuff. So right now, take care about the dishes and your garbage, right? We're gonna do the music for you. And you're gonna be like, what about the mind expanding experience that music is? What about having people that actually can play in a restaurant or bar for you and to have this amazing moment that already exists, that people know they love? But it's the steps, right? And so my point is that this is where like there is potential. For example, it's just like when autotune arrived, like you're just like, oh, it sucks, but then people use it to complement their skills. I think that AI as a companion would be great, but AI as a way to rip off intellectual property, that's really tough at the minute. You have this guy like Ed Newton that left Stability AI that now created this company called Fairly Trained, right? Shout out to Ed, like super cool initiative where he shows that you can actually ethically, ethically, it's my French Tourette's kicking in again, ethically train your models. So you can literally say, hey, if I train with all Mekaal's songs, we're going to be able to give you the receipt at the end when we produce songs. Well, you own, I don't know, you get 1% out of that.
Right.
AI at the moment is the only like industry in the world that no one asks for the receipt. Like I'm an IT engineer. Like I know that when you have a neural network and I don't know, and you have a large language model, it's very tough to know what ingredients you used to produce the output, right?
Yeah.
Input, logic, output. But when you eat something, you can check the origin of it, right? You know what farm it was or whatever, right? When you buy a software, you know who developed it. When you buy camera gears, you know who manufactured them.
Yeah.
But with AI, we're just like, can't tell you, bro.
But now, do you see this as becoming something which is very scary, which is that now with AI taking over all songwriting processes, lyrics, voices, like especially people with unique personalities, and they can now replace it or they can duplicate it to a point where really you can't tell. Like I heard
already now you can't tell.
I couldn't tell. It was some AI thing where it was like a Soundgarden sounding track, and it had I think it was a weird pairing. But the point was like I would have never. I think it was like Robert Plant or someone on something, and Drake. There was a Drake track as well. That was an AI track.
Yeah.
But this was like a rock. It was John Lennon singing on a track which sounded like a Soundgarden track. And it was like bizarre, right?
Yeah.
But it really sounded like his voice, and it really sounded like a Soundgarden song.
McCartney, they use that to. My point is again we don't know yet. It's like they are pioneering this, right? So we don't know yet, and I don't think like AI. I think you have there's a lot of potential. It's just that, for example, regarding intellectual property, the whole concept is why people before used to not make money with digital music, right? There was no phonograph, right? So you just live, right? When you do this, I think that maybe, in my opinion, I think that the concept that you can financially incentivize someone to spend time on music means that you're going to create beautiful stories and again emotions, because music is mind expanding, that you can relate to, and that helps us as a society to function all together. This is the purpose of art, right?
Yeah.
Community, we all gather around it, right? You used to be around a goddamn tree, right? And there was someone telling you a story. The same concept, that we are social human beings. And so I think that this is missed in that equation. The concept that we put IP in music, and people say like, oh, if you're a true artist, you shouldn't even ask money for your music. Okay, fair, but if you didn't give the Beatles the times, like all these years, which by the way it was pretty short, but like to have time to compose and to create and to record and to release these songs, just like so many other artists, I don't know why I can't even go, Elton John I wanted to say, like if you don't give these people the incentives to actually spend time, to not go and work, I don't know, at a thrift shop somewhere, right? To actually have time to do music because they know there is a potential reward at the end, then you create potential common stories that everyone's going to tell in the next years to come, which is called a song. Versus now you treat a song like a commodity. You're just like, oh, I just use a song just because when I'm in the elevator, I'm bored. That's why people used to call it elevator songs.
Right.
And now you just like you go on Sora, for example, or Sunio, I think, and they create songs just for you. And like, but this is really the concept of commodity. When you buy pasta, it's because you want to eat. It's just for yourself. Still, you can cook in a group, right? But like the concept is like it's very selfish. It's just for yourself.
It just satisfies you quickly, right?
Which is why I think like you have two branches that are gonna merge. You're gonna have human-made music, maybe complemented with AI. For example, the quality of the recording, right? If you have an AI that can mix or master the music you recorded,
already is there, yeah.
like why not? It's really cool because this at the moment that you're losing time doing it, right? But if you have AI that just like give you songs just for you, okay, cool. But first of all, credit the people that helped you to release these songs, right? As the tech company that did this in the middle. And as a fan, a consumer, I don't think this is that's my 2 cents, that's very subjective. But I don't see how this could become the main use case for people listening to music. I really see it as a way of like, oh, I want to hear a song that is made just for me right now, right? But I think most of the time what you want to hear is something that you would be able to see live or something that you would be able to sing at a pub with other people.
Not just that, but the purpose of the song or the track itself, if it's based for a commercial implementation, meaning if it's part of a TV ad, which is like a digital ad that they're just going to run, they would much rather, I would think, get into this process of letting the AI make the adverts and the music for the adverts than hiring actual people with actual cameras and actual studios and mics. Because it's like, why waste time and money on these guys? Like, we can just put in what we want, give it the scenario, give it a reference that, hey, this is the kind of sound we're going for. And it'll just spit out like 10 versions. Imagine having a person do that. Like, they'd have to sit there and write it.
But they already even have that. They have production studios that create just music for ads, right?
For ads,
like
exactly.
Background music, right?
Yeah.
But,
the darkest fear that I have is that they're just going to they're going to wait for this crop of superstars to die out, and then they're going to start making AI recordings of, oh, look, we found this track. Put it out there. And now that person's already got a legacy. If it's a legacy artist, like the John Lennon example I gave you, like people would hear it at least once, just for the fact that what did they do with it? Like the Drake track got so much.
There was traction, but just because
of the AI thing that it's so good that you can't tell from an actual Drake record, and the AI sounds just like there's some bangers on there because So my fear is that they're kind of evil, right? They're waiting for all these legends to die out, so then they can own their voices or their personalities and recreate it. Like, look at the ABBA thing. Like, they've got the holograms. Yeah. So that's not really ABBA playing, though, is it?
Yeah, but totally fair. But in that case, for example, with the so you talk about the ABBA hologram show that they had in London, right?
Yeah.
I feel it's fun because I think it was executively produced by Bjorn, that is like the member of ABBA, right? In that case, for example, people have the choice. Again, it's about free will, I feel, because if you know that this is a hologram of Elvis,
right,
or ABBA playing,
right,
and you want to see them because, well, some of them are not with us anymore, for example, right?
Exactly.
But that's your choice. For me, what is concerning is if we are being fed stuff without knowing. Because, for example, this here podcast, first one, thanks a lot for it. But like, we could recreate this with AI. We would not even need to be here.
Yeah.
But I believe that the point is more like when you watch it, me personally, for example, and a lot of people I know, when you watch it, what you want is relatability, right? You want it to feel relatable. Like, these people could be us, right? Correct. Someone could be like a French guy living in London that is trying to create a new music startup because he thinks that it's the future of music. Someone could be a Pakistani guy that has been traveling and playing amazing music around the world and is trying to do his residency in Canada. Because you watch this normally, not just like to feel better. You have feel-good movies, right? Or like, oh, I just want to feel good tonight, so I love the
I'll watch
King,
like
right? Right. So fair, but like, you also want to watch movies or documentaries or like close snippets of like on socials of things like, oh, I could do that. Like I want to watch people I love surfing. I'm not good at it, but I love watching people surfing. I will watch it digitally. That makes me want to go to see them surfing for real, right?
Yeah.
Same for dancing, same for cooking, same for everything else that you can see on these platforms. So I feel that you would have, again, two different ways of consuming.
Which is going to grow.
There'll be one that is, I don't care about relatability, right? What I want is something that, for example, I want a hologram to show me how to cook this pasta carbonara. Fair point. AI doing this, right? I have a romantic night coming with my partner, and I don't have a song. I say, AI, generate a playlist for me with romantic stuff. Why not? But then you'll be like, oh, I would love like to dance on a song with my partner at our wedding, and we need to both know the song, right? And also the guest, right?
Yeah.
It would be a bit weird that everyone is like, so do you want to have Bruno Mars or you want to have Robot number one? Maybe some people want Robot, but the point is that you have the choice. And maybe I want to see Gordon Ramsay cooking the pasta carbonara, or I want to see something that is just showing me how to cook pasta carbonara. But if there is something that looks like, sounds like, and do things like Gordon Ramsay, then Gordon Ramsay should get something out of it. You get my point?
Yeah.
I use music like a cooking on purpose. It's very French of me, but like, you get my point?
No, but you're right, because in that case, you're using that person's credibility and their reputation as a standard for whatever you're about to get for yourself. So you want to be, so there's two sides to it. It's like wanting the best possible thing and then wanting it the quickest. So if you want the best possible thing, most times people have to work towards those things. Now you don't. This is the kind of like...
It's a choice, free will, again. That's the bottom line, I think. That's what
I think younger people, it will just make people lazier and lazier. That's my fear. That it's just going to be a cop-out. Now everything's AI. Pretty soon, like I look at like people driving, lorries, or there was a funeral thing going past my apartment the other day. And I was just looking, I was like, how long is it going to be before all of this is being done by robot-driven cars? As is happening in California now. Like Tesla has these self-driven cars. How many of our jobs are sort of like eventually going to be just taken over by robots? And then we're just going to be stuck in our houses with these touch screens and these fancy things alone. That's a horrible...
So for me, it's like I'm a bit less worried about... There will be jobs that will disappear. That's like a fact, right? But I feel like if it's the jobs that we don't want to do, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So that's more my point. It's like the fact that we go to future, like we go on a tangent here, but like a universal basic income and all this kind of stuff, right? That, I mean, again, not a lot of people wanted to do garbage collection. It's vital for society, and props to all the people doing it. Like an uncle that did it. But it's more like farming, for example, right? You want to take care about farming. But when you have to, and this is like I talk for experience, like when you wake up at 5 a.m. because you have to take care of, like, get the milk, take care about the field and stuff like this, trust me, like a lot of people would want to avoid having to do this, taking care of animals or something like this. Yes, having to wake up every day at 5 a.m. for your lifetime. Take care about a farm.
That's tough.
Most people, it's a really tough job. That's why I'm a countryside guy, and I love living in cities now. It's not a coincidence, right? It's because life is way more comfortable.
Yes.
It could be, the whole point is that can we bring comfort without making us like just the shadow of ourselves. Last time I shared something where, like, I don't know if people know this movie WALL-E.
Yeah.
This small robot and stuff. And like basically everyone is like fat humans that have the chair that move with them and they don't do anything else.
That is the worst case scenario that I was thinking of, that eventually all of this is just going to make people lazier. Because the tendency is to want to rest, to not want to do anything, right? Just to be comfortable. The tendency is not to jump out of bed and go and work, right? It's like, you have to wake yourself, you have to get yourself ready. There's a whole process to it. Now, if a machine can start doing all those things, drive your kids to school, I don't know what, like, do all the menial tasks that normal people do.
The chores,
The chores, right? If they take all the chores away, then there's all those jobs gone. But pretty soon, all the jobs that required human creativity are also on the decline because you're not being pushed to think of creative solutions.
If it enhances, it's cool.
That's fine, yeah.
If it's not. So AI, when you will be training on that video, enhance.
Answer, yeah. I mean, I think that's the fear, that we understand that jobs will be redundant. Certain mechanical tasks will definitely be outsourced. But like when all your creative tasks start depending on AI giving you the prompt or making the thing for you, I think you're like, might want to sort of like revisit that one, because that is not what it should be really doing, really.
It doesn't feel as good.
No.
That's a great way to finish the conversation, like talking about AI in future.
Yeah.
Again, thanks a lot for being here with us.
Thank you so much.
Let's see what it looks like when we will be editing this. and maybe it's going to be 4 hours long because AI is going to just we have a tool.
Did we talk for a very long time?
Yeah, before you used to be like, I know a guy, and now it's like, I know an AI. No. It's like super cool. Thanks a lot for being here.
Anytime.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, everyone.